Today, I'm going to talk about Hermes Trismegistus, the Emerald Tablet, and of course, Hermetics. Right? I'll be using this topic as a bridge, all right, to the different paths in alchemy. Um, these will not be the traditional astrology and theology and the others. These are going to be my interpretation. And as you'll see in this video, towards the end, why I've interpreted as such. All right. So before we get going here, this may be new to some of you. So who is Hermes Trismegistus? All right. Hermes, he's a legendary Hellenistic figure that created it created this document called the Emerald Tablet. Many believe that he was actually a figure, not just one person, but um, a group of people or a mythical person that was created by combining the Greek messenger god Hermes and the Egyptian god. Uh, a lot of people call him Thoth. It's actually Tahuti. Um, and Hermes was um, like many others. They've never found living, actual proof of him being a living person. Um, so the texts that were actually found, they were written between 6 and 8 CE. All right, this is actually after the time period where the supposed figure actually lived. Okay. The earliest known version of the tablet was found embedded in the Kitab Sur al-Asrar, or the Secret of Secrets. All right. Latin translation started to appear around the 12th century, and to be clear, no actual tablet has been found. All right. There's been no documentation or tablets found from the Hellenistic period of 1 to 3 CE either. Though this is believed to be the actual period that Hermes is from. All right. There's a theory, right, that it was most likely written between 600 and 800 CE, potentially drawing on earlier writings from Syriac Hermetic material, which we'll dive into later on, definitely outside the topic of this video. And also, I want to make sure that we're clear on the topic of this as well, all right, of this video. So we are going to be talking about the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, not the one of Thoth or Tahuti. That has been debunked. Okay, and so this is actually going to be the written factual documentation that can be found in the book mentioned earlier. All right, so this figure is widely regarded as the ultimate source of Hermeticism, a philosophical, a spiritual traditional foundation. Hermeticism, a philosophical and spiritual, foundational Western esotericism practice. It's foundational to alchemy and then also astrology. And so you're probably thinking to yourself at this point, right? Wait, if he's not real, who wrote these things, right? As above, so below. Hold on to your seats because here we go. All right, so this is an image, a depiction of the Emerald Tablet. All right, so it was believed that the Greek and Hellenistic philosophers that were actually living in Egypt at the time wrote this very short set of we'll call it instructions. All right. So from Britannica, the Emerald Tablet is a short, cryptic text traditionally attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. It became foundational in the alchemical and hermetic traditions of the medieval Islamic and later medieval and Renaissance Europe. All right. The Wikipedia definition, anybody that knows me knows I absolutely cannot stand Wikipedia as a somebody with a very very advanced university degree. Wikipedia drives me nuts, but I'll throw this out here for all you the naysayers, right? So Wikipedia a definition: the Emerald Tablet is a foundational text of Western alchemy and hermeticism. It is a short, highly cryptic document that outlines the interconnected connectedness of the universe and serves as the ultimate source of the famous maxim as above so below, which we're going to dive into here in just a second. Okay. So on the screen there, you can see the image of the Emerald Tablet from different teachings, different scriptures. All right, and so this is the actual writing of the Emerald Tablet, and we're going to dive into the many different translations here really quick. And by the end of this video, just to let everybody know, that's kind of like, okay, I already know all this, right? By the end of this video, um, I'm going to help you understand my thoughts on what the depictions and the text and everything else mean, and it's definitely not something that I've actually heard said anywhere else, right? And so there's been hints at it, but not I haven't heard it. So anyway, just letting you guys know that this isn't just going to be a standard review of the Emerald Tablet and Hermes. All right, all right. So this is the Google translation from the Latin. All right. Um, this is directly from Google Translate. So here, as you can see, okay, there's many people, right? Like, have you ever asked yourself, have you ever like actually sat back and asked yourself, right? That image of the tablet, right? Why was it green? Why was that tablet, or why was the tablet green? Was it made of emerald? Was it made of, particles of copper and other things? Like, why did they say it was green, right? Um, so again, by the end of this video, I'll explain. All right. Um, and so right here on the screen, right, true without a lie, certain and most true. That which is lower is like that which is higher, and that which is higher is like that which is lower, to perform the miracles of the one thing. Its father is the sun. Its mother is the moon. The wind carried it in its womb. Its nurse is the earth. The father of all telemism of the whole world is here. Its power is complete if it is turned into earth. If you think back on the some of the alchemical symbolism from Alchemy 101, the Alchemy 101 video, um, I'm going to link all of this to that as well here in just a second, but you can probably kind of see where this is going, right? So, what is the symbol of the sun, right? In those symbols, it's a circle with a dot in the middle, which is also gold. Okay, and so that's right there. The moon is the crescent, and so the the symbol for earth and matter and other things we'll get into here in a minute, but um, I'm not going to read the rest of this out right now. We'll dive into some of this, but it ascends from the earth into the heaven and descends again to the earth, right, and receives the power of the higher and the lower. Okay, thus you have the glory of the whole world. Therefore, let the darkness flee from you. Thus the world was created. Like, if you actually read through this and start, tapping into each one of these line by line, and looking at them a little bit deeper, there's definitely some serious symbolism going on, algorically, right? And so let's see. One other thing that I did not mention was the last phrase, right, from the tablet. Therefore, I was called Hermes Trismegistus, having three parts of the philosophy of the whole world. What I said about the operation of the sun is complete. Okay, this is important. So his last name Trismegistus, it stood for thrice great. All right, and this is why. All right, so here's the translations from Isaac Newton. All right, I'm not going to read this. I will add a link in the description to the Alchemy website where you can actually go and find a bunch of different translations. A lot are different, just based on the time period, and so you can see how some of these mistranslations very easily throughout history. You can see very easily through the different translations of this. Just the different types of like thee and ye, and um, if you go back, there's other ones. Let me get back here. Where am I at? I am way forward. Um, yeah, so right here you can see in this one it's like the wind, and in Isaac Newton's it's going to be a ye wind, right? And so there's other things as well, just based on time period and things that could actually mess with translations. So definitely be aware when you're going through some of this stuff. All right. All right, Madame Blavatsky. If any of you don't know who this is, we'll probably dive into her at some point. I am next week. We're getting into the spiritual side and psychology side, and so I haven't decided if I'm going to release her information out over there or if I'm going to release it on the energy side. But it will come out. I will. I do have some information and some excellent research for you guys if you'd like. All right. So, why did I just show you these quick translations, right? Um, there's a topic in this text, right? Specifically, I've kind of already touched on it. That there seems to be a lot of personal opinions. Okay, people add to some of these translations based on their interpretations. They add to them, based on their intuition, and then they don't actually fact check their intuition, or even try to interpret what the original writers were trying to say. Right? They get that ooh, ooh, oh man, this is exactly it, and then they go right, and so you'll actually find this all over the internet with this statement specifically, or this phrase specifically, right? Um, a lot of a lot of folks have kind of added their own spin to this, right? To include things like as above, so below, as within, so without, which was actually never in the original text, okay? Or as above, so below, as the universe, so the soul. Again, that was never in the text, okay? The original text never had those extra phrases in it. It was literally that which is above is from that which is below, and that which is below is from that which is above, okay? So, with that being said, what's coming next, I'm leaving the New Age interpretations out of. Okay. The interpretations of this statement, if we actually begin from the three different lenses I've already defined on this channel for alchemy, you can start to see that there's links in them. All right. And so much so that over the years, the new additions and interpretations, they kind of have. And I've touched briefly on veils, which I'll touch on that later. But these New Age interpretations have created veils similar to that which, certain beliefs use to hide information right in plain sight, right in front of you. All right. I'm sure it was not intentional, but that is absolutely what is happening. All right. In fact, all one truly has to do is go find the original interpretations, translations of this tablet, of this document, to see the other links in the other translations as well, right? And so, in the true fashion of this channel, let's unveil some of this information that I've I've been kind of toying with, playing around with, looking at for a little while, all right? So I'm gonna call this path one of three. Energy transmutation, all right, internal, external. And so, as you can see right here on the screen as well, we've got the that Alchemy website where the translations, some of them came from. All right. So let's look at some links in imagery. All right. So for anybody who knows me, and for those who don't know me, um, for a long time I've been doing research at the academic level into this, theology and kind of linking some of these to um, you know other things like scientific topics or psychology or even health and medicine, right, for healing. And so one day I was actually when I was starting to work through Kundalini and Reiki, when I was starting down that path, I was working through a ton of research, right? And I around the same time, synchronicities started to just kind of take over, and I've got literally thousands of triple date and digit repeating numbers or whatever, on my phone and all over the place. Anyway, so I was following synchronicities, right, pretty heavily, trying to heal my body and my mind. And I realized the other day, actually, on this same topic, that most of you who are watching this right now probably have no idea my journey. And so I am going to release an introductory video and such about myself in this course, or not this course, this channel. And why I'm not going to be releasing a paid course at any time, and why I'm sharing knowledge freely. All right. And so at any rate, with that being said, at the time I was diving very, very deep, right, into theology and linking different concepts in religion, psychology and even cultural beliefs, and trying to find cross links between things like Christianity and Buddhism, or Christianity and Hinduism, or Buddhism and Hinduism or Taoism, right? And so, all in all, I believe I've touched on, I think, 18 cultural belief systems and religions right now. And so, um, I'm hoping to link some of that and release some of that in the spiritual alchemy side. But for now, we're gonna keep going this path. All right. So okay, where are we here? So below, so links and imagery. And if we start looking at, this is an image of Lao Tzu, right? So we're going to a deep dive into only a couple of paintings here, a couple of images, right, to help link this thing that I noticed one day when I was doing theology research and looking at imagery. Okay. Um, Please do, after we go through this, go and do some Google searches on your own. I mean, look at a bunch at different religions, different cultures, different beliefs, that had a focus on different energy type healing systems, and you'll see what I'm talking about. All right. Um, it can be historical art, it can be sculptures, it can be paintings. So, especially the ones that have the deities and even the disciples, okay, throughout history. Anything that you see that has that halo, like you see on the screen right now from Lao Tzu, you'll see something similar. All right. Um, so I was looking at I came across, it was a book of images from one of the Abrahamic religions, as I was trying to link it to some things from Hinduism. And in this book of images, I started noticing, the ones with the halos, right? There's other positioning throughout. All right. And so from there, I was like, that's kind of odd, right? That's an odd coincidence. And so I expanded out looking at other traditions, other religions, other belief systems, and sure enough, it was the same. All right. So to kind of back up here a little bit, this and what I mean by others held it, I don't just mean others inside of the Abrahamic religion, right, or traditions. As you can see on the screen right here, Lao Tzu, for anybody that doesn't know who that is, that Taoism, right? And so he, so him, Krishna, Kali, Buddha, and I'm trying to think of the others, right? There's so many, a lot throughout the Indian and Hindu and even Asian cultures. So, all right, so the head, the heart, and the hara. All right, if we look at this very closely, you can see there's a hard line right at the top of the brow. There is the spot right by the heart, right, where it's not just the hands that are pinched and pointing up, like this. If you look at the collar, there's actually a point that it comes to right there as well. Down in the hara, you've got the hand positioning for the mudra, okay, and then right in the center is the yin and yang. Maps. How I'm interpreting this right now are energetic depictions. I don't know if that's what they are. I'm just sharing what I've noticed in these pictures. All right. The Abrahamic, the seven chakra system. Look at them, right? Top of their heads, the crown. Many of them are looking at the throat, the third eye. You have the line right there by where Jesus's third eye is. The line by the throat. The line at the the heart. The like look, or at the solar plexus. Sorry, look at that. There's a 537 AD depiction. Same thing. Hard line right at the freaking eyebrows. Right in the middle of the halo. Hard line right there at the throat. Hard line at the heart. Fingers are pointing to it. The bottom one is actually pointing right here. This bottom one, oops, is where the fingers are pinching together. Same thing. The rest of it is cut off. So examining different images of different deities throughout history, right? And I'll go back because I know some folks are kind of sensitive to Abrahamic images, and so examining images of different deities throughout history, both in museum and private collections, you can actually see the alignment to the different energy points of these systems throughout history. There are many images, right, that actually show the alignment to the seven chakra, not just in Abrahamic the Abrahamic side, but also throughout different Egyptian paintings and papyri, and some of those you can actually see pointing in the Book of the Dead to the 9 point or the 9 energy point mapping that the Egyptians used. Okay, the funerary rites of Anubis. If you look at it, if you map out the grid there are actually two sets. Okay, there's vertical and horizontal lines. One that goes along the body laying on the altar, and then another one that goes, or sorry, horizontally for Anubis and or Anpu, and the vertical ones that go um, with the subject laying on the altar. All right. So I left those ones out specifically, all right, because we are going to dive deeper into the Egyptian systems later. All right. So what do we miss here? All right, let's take a peek. Because there's definitely been different scholars in history that have kind of alluded to some of where we're headed, right? So Albertus Magnus, I don't have his book with me, but he's got a book on planetary. I think it's planetary magic, if I remember right, and some alchemy, writers of alchemy and such. So um, he says that the power of all things below originate in the stars and constellations of the heavens, and this was his interpretation. Okay, uh, he says that all these powers are poured down into all things by the circle of Alaur, which is, they said, the first circle of the constellations. Okay, this descent is noble, and when the material uh, receiving these powers are more like things above in their brightness and transparency. What does that sound like to you? Ignoble when the materials are confused and foul, so that the heavenly power is, as it were, oppressed. Therefore, they say that this is the reason why precious stones, more than anything else, have wonderful powers, while the 7 kinds of metals have their forms from the 7 planets of the lower spheres. What does this sound like? What are the 7 spheres? What are the 7 planets? I'm throwing these out here to get you guys to think before I get to where I'm going. All right. So what is this saying, right? Air. In my interpretation, is that air comes from the heavens. It's poured down into all things, right? When it's pure, it is more noble than when it is not pure. When breathed in, it passes through the first circulation of the body, the allower, right? The descent is noble when the air is more like that from above. So more pure. It's not contaminated. It's not tainted with man-made crap. It is expelled when it is like that of the earth. So when it becomes like carbon dioxide, when it comes to carbon, it is expelled from the body. The precious air is what gives the stones, my interpretation, the chakra, their luster and gives them the power that they hold, right? The 7 kind of metals, right? What could that be? I don't know. I don't know what that could be. Let you guys interpret that as you will. Um, so every practice, every spiritual practice, every meditation practice, every energy healing practice, it all starts with breath. Okay, you breathe in, you focus on your breath, you control your breath. In Qigong, there is a concept, and even Kung Fu and meditation and others, right? How do you tame a monkey? You give it a banana. In meditation in Qigong, right? This is the brain. The brain is the monkey. Air is the banana. All right. That's generally how they would link it, or how I would link it. All right. There's a bunch of others interpretations in here. I'll let you go out and do some research on your own. But um, a couple of these are actually very, very interesting to me. One of them is um, Burkhart. He states that this refers to the reciprocal dependence of the active and the passive. Okay, essential form cannot be manifested without passive materia. Almost sounds like yin and yang. The efficacy of the spiritual power depends on the preparedness of the human container and vice versa. So this goes back to in my mind, this is linking back to the um, the empty vessel, practice in Taoism, right? A dirty or empty vessel cannot fill others, and that's in my mind, that's what he's saying, right? And so as I go through all of these, right, I'm gonna cut the rest of these off just for the sake of time, because I know that my videos have been very, very long, and I apologize. A lot of information was packed into a very, very short amount of time, in my opinion. All right, so Needham, this is going to be the last one, and then I will drop a hypothetical, and then we'll move on. So Needham states the whole affirmation looks remarkably like the doctrine that extreme of yin yang generates yin and vice versa. What is interesting is that there's many translations similar to the one I didn't actually read. It's Fulcanelli. It ends with statements similar to "With this knowledge alone, you may work miracles." Okay. The hypothetical Taoist translation is see the highest comes from the lowest, and the lowest from the highest. Indeed, a marvelous work of the Tao. All right, some links. Let's jump into some potential links here. So, Allure, so the number seven is not a coincidence. Okay, there are there's too many of them to be a coincidence, and also I don't believe in coincidences, right? So if you examine different concepts, you'll see that there's seven planets. There's seven chakras, seven alchemical stages, seven classical materials. The formula of creation is the number seven, which I didn't really dive into, but this is by design, right? We know this. But what does it mean? What does it actually mean, right? What if we look at this from the lens of energy healing, the chakras? What if the formula of creation was broken down differently? Because currently it is 3 plus 4. What if we break this down to 3 plus 1 plus 3? If we apply this to the separation of the chakra, I said it. If we break this apart, the upper three chakra, the crown, the third eye, and the throat, the bottom, the lower, solar plexus, your root, and and your sacral, all linked by the heart. The heart. So the heart is actually it's the same place where the strongest energy is emitted from the human energy field. All right. According to Cambridge, in the alchemical and philosophical writings of Albert the Great, or Albertus Magnus, specifically in his book Minerals De Mineralibus, the allure, it refers to the celestial or cosmic circle, right? In medieval Hermeticism and astrology, allure is described as the first circle of the constellation. So if we think about different concepts of energy circulation through the body, um, this actually starts mapping out fairly well. All right, the conduit of power is another one. Okay, the conduit of power, right? According to this text, the spiritual and foundational powers of the earthly substances originate from the stars and heavenly spheres. Poured down, right? These powers are then poured down into the natural earthly realm, which is called the circle of allure. So if you think about your outer rings, your outer aura, um, if you think about, this first circulation through the body, the oxygen, if you think about, in physical alchemy, that first circulation would be the falling of substance out of solution and into one of its other forms. And so this sounds a lot to me, right? Like chi, chakra, and the spine, though. And then the theory of the stones, right? Albert the Great, he also cites this concept to explain miraculous properties of gemstones. He states that heavenly powers descend into the materials nobly and ignobly, depending on their physical purity, right? Which we've already kind of touched on here. But um, highly transparent and bright, a stone. Hmm. All right. Let's see here. So on the screen over here, you can see the 12 classical planets, right? So again, I don't think that anything's a coincidence. And so here's more repeating numbers throughout, the stuff in alchemy and across different teachings across the world, right? Not just alchemy, different systems of energy. 12 classical planets. We've got 12 months, right? um, and 12 meridians. There were 12 apostles. Um, and then if we start looking at the next part, right, the five elements, right, we've got five elements and five values. So in the five elements across, it actually exists across most systems. This isn't. It's not a hidden fact. It's not something that's not known, right? Taoism, Wicca, alchemy, many occult systems, and yeah, so wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, right? Underlying all of these correspondences, though, inside of Taoism, the five Zhang organs, right? So the yin is a solid organ, the liver is wood, the heart is considered fire, spleen, earth, lung, metal, kidney, water. In the occult and alchemy, you've got earth, air, fire, water, ether, or spirit. Um, and so, other systems also have different alignments there um, with elements, right? And it's just something that we've associated with with just different systems, different organs, and things. So, all right, so thrice great Hermes. Here's some more links. You got three Dantian. You got three principal or primary channels, three pillars, right? Which we're going to hop into here in just a few minutes. You've got the three suns. You've got the three Granthis and the three paths of alchemy. All right. So, well, what we're examining right now is only one of the three paths I've described on this channel so far. The final statement that I'm going to read from the Emerald Tablet is, it says, "For this reason, I am called Hermes Trismegistus, because I hold three parts of the wisdom of the whole world." So it's believed that these are, alchemy, astrology, and theurgy. Okay. I think these can be broken down even further. Just like the stages of alchemy, they can be applied to many, many, many things in life. All right. The stages of alchemy, you can apply that to business. You can apply that to, parenting, like you name it, you can apply it to. If you break it down properly, you can apply that system maps to processes. All right. This though, what if I told you that if we decided to kind of examine this more, right, from a more ancient lens, from a modern view of energy practices from a little bit more ancient lens, right? They all point to the exact same place. All of them. They're all broken up into the three locations: the head, the heart, the hara, the seven chakra, the primary chakra. There are more, which I'm going to touch on here in a minute, but which the Hermeticism does kind of expand out on, right? So the Kundalini ascent and descent, right? That which is above is like that which is below, and that which is below it receives that from which is above, right? And so it's traveling the central call up and down, up and down. In Qigong, you learn that the lower Dantian is actually where Qi is stored and produced. It's like an oven, right? Your air goes in. We've discussed this in another video. Air goes in, hits the diaphragm, and then it's converted and mixes with other things circulated through the body to give you energy, to give you Qi, right? And food is one of those things that requires transformation into the energy, right? And so anyway, Taoist inner alchemy, it's actually the inner furnace, right? It is the foundational energetic center. In the yogic path, you've got the three primary channels. Kabbalah, you've got you've got the three pillars. In Kundalini, the three knots or the Granthi, and then in Egyptian and Sekhem, you have the three suns. The primary three energetic areas, right, often referred to as power centers or suns, conceptually align with these core faculties. All right, the center of the mind, the crown of the third eye, right? These are associated with the divine illumination, clairvoyance, and accessing celestial wisdom. In Sekhem, this area connects you directly to divine source. All right, the center of the heart or the jib is the core of the Sekhem system. All right, ancient Egyptians viewed the physical heart as the seat of motion, thought, will, and conscience. All right, it is the driver for unconditional love and spiritual expansion. In the center of will, the solar plexus, it is the core for manifesting. Processing emotions and reclaiming your personal power. Sekhmet's energy is often used to break down obstacles, blocking your personal power and rebuilding it from the center. And I know I said that I was not going to dive deep into the Egyptian path currently, so I'll leave that as a teaser, right, for future videos of Egyptian systems. All right, so the alignment here is actually flawless. All right, then what you see on this screen is a little bit more flawless than what you see. All right, so there's no weird shifts. There's no trying to force it. The Dantian, the chakras, and the Granthis systems, they're one and the same. All right. If we examine this from the lens of the chi flow, right, there's a clear separation. We've already touched on this, breathing the air in, and it's processed through the body, through the diaphragm, into the oxygen, and then back out, right? For general energy and Kundalini work, we can feel the energy traversing up and down the spine or throughout the body, depending on the practice, right? So, Saivite, you can actually feel your nervous system. You can feel the energy traveling through it, which is very, very, it's kind of weird, right? But amazing. And so, even science has shown the energy traveling in a similar manner throughout the nervous system, and this through and the cerebral spinal fluid going up and down. Um, and so on the screen, you can see the upper dantian, the crown, third eye, and throat are the alignment. The middle dantian, the heart aligns. The lower dantian, the solar plexus, the sacral, and the root. The alignment to the Granthis, the lower and root, they align to the Brahma Granthi, which is the knot of attachment. The middle and heart, they actually align to the Vishnu Granthi, which is the knot of passions. And then the upper third eye and third eye, they align to the Rudra Granthi, which is the knot of ego. All right. Okay, so if now we kind of take a look here, um, or take a step back and think about this, right? The thing that never actually changes in any of these systems that you look at, including the auric or the aura and the energy field, the diaphragm and those three areas. So the upper, lower, and middle, those are the power centers. All right. No matter what system you look at, those are the power centers. Okay. Um, if we examine the flow of the Kundalini, you can see that it's essentially, the midway point. The middle dantian is effectively Vishnu. All right. It's the Vishnu Granthi. So when Albertus talks about the circle of the first constellation, I believe that it is this circulation, of the spine that and the whole system of the body, right? The noble descent of the material, creating the chi or the prana. Um, Yeah, I'm reading over my notes here really quick just to make sure I didn't miss anything, but I think we're at a good spot here where we can move on. All right, so therefore they say that okay, so um, yeah, Albertus Magnus, he's got a lot. If you haven't read any of his books, I'll link a couple of them in the video description. But there's a lot to it, and so the descent is noble. When materials receive these powers, right? The chi, it's more like the things above in their brightness and transparency, which we've already talked about. Ignoble is when the materials are confused and foul, all right, and so that the heavenly power is as it were oppressed. So because of this, they say that the precious stones, more than anything else, they've got wonderful powers, right? And so these are when they're refined, when they're polished, when they're operating, functioning properly, when your organs are in good working proper order. And then it says, well, the seven kinds of metals, right? The tree of life have their forms from the seven planets of the lower spheres, the tree of death, the yin yang, dark and light, light and dark. This is as above, so below, right? Alignment of charging these centers is when the chakras become clear and bright like shiny stones. Albertus Magnus. Um, all right, in health, making sure that these are functioning properly leads to longevity of life, and better health, less sickness. All right, so we're gonna jump into really very very briefly the Kabbalistic trees, right? The trees of life and the tree of death or the tree of knowledge. And so I could have stopped, but what fun would that be, right? What fun would it be to not link this to what mystery schools and many, many other occult practices already know and share? And yeah, what fun would that be? So what if I told you though that even what Hermes was describing, right? It was the use of these systems. So these systems, they when you break them down, they apply to many things, right? It's not just one or two things. It's many. And so still today, the tree of life, along with the tree of knowledge or tree of death, they align perfectly with the subject of energy work. All right. Physical alchemy and spirituality. Okay. The tree of life and death are are used by, not just Kabbalists, but I'm sure there's many people that are watching this video right now that are not Kabbalistic. They're not a part of Hermetics. Maybe they align with, Luciferianism. Maybe they align with Wicca. Maybe they align with Judaism. Maybe they align with whatever. You know of this, right? So it's not just the Kabbalists. It's not just Hermetics. Um, the Golden Dawn, in fact, which I'm probably going to upset some Crowley fanboys here. Sorry about that. Not sorry. All right, I'm going to go on a quick rant. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, right? The body of light exercise. It was pulled from some of the systems, parts of it were pulled from systems that were far older, such as the Tibetan Buddhist body of light meditation. Okay. They were they were adapted, modified, and shifted to fit Western society and the needs of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and their rituals. So, in fact, many practices found inside the Golden Dawn complete system of magic. There's pieces spread all over there of practices collected, tested, and compiled from systems all over the world by the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons. All right. When they stood up the order of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, not Aleister Crowley. All right, I'm sorry, Crowley, and I've heard this so many times on online. Like Crowley did not start the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. All right, Thelema, yes, Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. He was just the leak in the sinking ship. All right, all right. With that being said, I've I've given him way too much attention already, and so I'm just going to move on, right? So, Hermeticism, as well as a mix of Egyptian, Greek, Jewish mysticism, and even astrology from Babylonia, were all a part of a lot of the Hermetic order uh, rituals. So, all right, what if I told you these were maps? All right, so what does that look like to you? So there are five central chakra. Again, with the odd number. There are three on the sides. Again, the odd number. Two on top, two on bottom, linked at the middle. But there's more. If you're a Reiki healer, you already know what the pillars on the side are. Okay. If you are a Chi healer or Qigong or Ayurvedic, you already know what those pillars on the right and left are. These, number 3 and number 2, the shoulders. Here and here. When you're studying Reiki, when you're studying different types of energy healing, you learn that the flow of energy comes from the brain, the head, down to the shoulders, down to your elbows, down to your hands, and out. Those are the three chakras that are used for healing. Again, my interpretation. Take it for what you will, however you want. You've got the triads, okay? The brain, the heart, and the liver. In fact, you can see there's a line between Bina and Chokma, right? What would that be? Or what could that be considered? The cutoff at the head. You have the line between Javura and Chesed, uh, middle line, and then the one between Had and Netzach, the Hara. Each of these are actually broken out, right, into triads. Again, my interpretation, take it however you wish. Some of you will ask, well, some of you will say, well, there's only 5, right? There's only 5 of them. You know, the chakra systems have generally 7. You are absolutely correct. And you're also probably thinking to yourself, why is there one at the very, very bottom there, right? You are also correct there as well. So there's more chakras than these, right? I believe that these are the critical organs that are focused on by the Kabbalists, right? The 5 critical organs are the brain, the heart, the liver, the kidneys, and the intestines. Okay. The Kabbalists believed that these are the most important organs when you are healing. All right. Similar, and this is actually similar now that I'm thinking about it, to Chinese traditional Chinese medicine. And so, you know, here's kind of the breakdown. So Moak, it's viewed as the seat of the intellect, right? The king of the nervous system. It directs a rational soul and governs the body's neurological cognitive functions, right? I'm looking here to see what else we've got. So the heart, you know, the epicenter of human emotion, you know, and each of these actually, if you go and research what they are, their function, their purpose, you know, this can be mapped in a couple of different manners. But currently, we're gonna dive into this one, right? All right, so the central pillar as a path, okay. The central pillar is sometimes called the path of the arrow, or the middle pillar, or the middle way. All right, the most let me scroll down here in my notes here. The most direct route of ascent in Kabbalistic meditation is going to be this manner, right? Where you traverse the central pillar. The whole central pillar actually aligns to other traditions as well, and so the Sushumna Nadi in yoga, the central channel along the spine, and then you've got the thrusting vessel, or Chong Mai, in Qi, or Taoist alchemy. The Axis Mundi, or the world tree in shamanic traditions, also aligns. The pillars of mercy and severity, so those also align with the Taoist yin yang, with the central channel as their union. The Kundalini, Ida and Pingala, flanking the Sushumna. Hermetic, traditions, solvet coagula in alchemy. And then in most occult, Freemason, mystic, and Kabbalah, you've got the concepts of Boaz and Jachin, right? So the light and dark pillars. Okay, so there is just some general alignments of the pillars of the tree of life. All right, so pillars of the tree of knowledge, or the tree of death, right? You've got force, ego, and form. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the pillars of this tree in a different video, spirituality side, because you can absolutely use this for shadow work. If anybody doesn't understand that, you will by the time we're done there. All right, and so let's get into this. So the right pillar is Um, it's corrupted force, unrestrained desire, the demonic expansion, ergo, Gash, Golachab, which I butchered that, I don't care. So, left pillar, corrupted form, tyrannical restriction, and devouring structure. The central pillar is false unity, ego as a god, and the abyss, right? The Thalmael at the top, and the twin gods opposing Keter. Again, the spirituality side, we'll dive more into that, right? And so let's wrap this thing up here. So what about Hermes, right? I said that this whole thing was going to be about Hermes Trismegistus, the Emerald Tablet, and the concepts thereof. So if we revisit the imagery, some of the very famous imagery of Hermes, and even the Emerald Tablet with a broader understanding outside of making physical gold out of physical lead. If we look at this from a transmuting our crude negredo, unpolished, unrefined selves, and we think about the processes that goes through, we can see that that the mapping, the linking is pretty straightforward. All right, and so when we look at this from a different tradition perspective, right, you can see how they map, and these are things that other traditions have known for a very, very long time. All right, the image on the right, the one of Hermes pointing down at the moon, right, and then he points up as well at the other hand, right, and so if you examine that, in fact, let me see if I can. I'll post a link to the actual image. That way you guys can see the full image of that. I apologize. I shouldn't have cut that off. But so the image on the right, though, if you look at it, right, he's pointing down. So what is he pointing down at, right? He's pointing at the moon, right? The moon is in other topics, other things we've discussed already. You can see that it's the lower, right? The sun, the upper, and then you can see the clear separation by the fires at the heart. Okay. Head, heart, hara. The one on the left, okay? The circle represents water, okay? Water. The square represents terra or earth, okay? Materia, matter. The upper triangle is fire, and then you've got the circle around the outside again as water. But if you look at it a little bit closer, you'll notice something, all right? You'll notice that a few things actually. So first, why is there a man and a woman in that circle? Why are they standing there, right? Think about the location of the hara. Think about where things are, in the female body. Where is man created? It's created in the womb. It is created in the lower dantian area. Area. I said area. All right. Um, if you think about chi, manifestation, right there. All right. So now, if we look at where Hermes is pointing with these sticks, it's the same exact thing. It's the same exact picture on the left and the right. My personal interpretation from an energy, a manifestation, a healing, whatever perspective. It's a map. It's a call to align your chakra. It is a call to make sure that your organs are in proper functioning order. It is a call It is a map. It is an instruction manual. To heal, your chakras need to be aligned. To heal, your chakras need to be vibrant. To heal, this is the direction of energy flow into the body, throughout the body, and where it goes, right? Taoists know, they understand that the hands are one of the exit points of energy in healing. That's why the laying of hands works so well, right? In some mystic traditions that I'm a part of, there's discussion of sending electrical charge through the ganglion to heal the body. Again, sending the energy out. All right. All right. So my this right here is currently my understanding. All right. The point of the stick at the top is telling you where, you know, where the energy, where the air comes in, where the raw material comes in for your body to transmute this. All right. As it's transmuting it, you can actually build it, store it, and direct it through the body. This is my current interpretation. Both of these images, you know, in my mind right now are the same as all of the other systems that I've pointed out, except this is way more veiled, right? So it begs the question, what actually happened around that time, right? If this truly was one of those systems, why was it hidden, right? Was this a shift from traditional medicine to physical medicine? I don't know. Was it the you know what folks are saying now that you know they were hiding it because it was considered witchcraft? I don't know, but it would make sense. All right, if we think back about the you know all of the reasons why the alchemists hid these things, right, in allegories and pictures and other things, it was because it was considered Satanism or witchcraft or other things, and so that that tracks perfectly if we step back and think about it, right? A lot of folks inside of the Qigong, a lot of folks that practice Qigong, and even parts of Asia, they understand that the witch trials that they took place, they weren't witches. They were chi healers. They were prana healers. They were Reiki healers. They were able to feel the energies. They were able to move the energies, and they were able to transmute. And so, with that, the last saying, that which is lower is like that which is higher, and that which is higher is like that which is lower. To perform the miracles of one thing. In this current interpretation, that is healing, that is transmutation, that is being able to use your chi, your prana, your energy to heal the world. All right. With that, I'm going to leave you with with one final story. All right. Oh, actually, no, I'm not. So before we jump into the final story, the chakra, I told you guys that I was going to tell you the why the chakras spin both ways. Your chakra are not one dimensional. They're not two dimensional. They're not three dimensional. All right. They're spheres. They're or and so um a lot of what I've heard online, there seems to be this thought that you could own the chakra only on the front, They're not. They go through the body, right? They're channels. They're just like acupressure, right? Acupressure have the dips, right? The channels, the energy channels that are in the body. And so for acupressure and acupuncture, right? The chakra go through the front and through the back. When the Kundalini traverses, okay, it doesn't just traverse one direction, it traverses opposites. And when it's traversing the front and then coming back and then coming front and then coming back. When it does this, the chakras spin opposite directions. So when you see the images online of and you see the chakra doing this, right? Going like this, the body is hollow. Okay, what they're showing you is the chakras, the front and back view from one angle, one dimension, one direction, right? And so, anyway, that I almost forgot about that. Anyway, that's all there. All right, so my final story. Uh, one day, I met a man who came here from China. All right, we were talking about different things related to Reiki, pendulums, and the topic of witchcraft came up. All right, he explained to me that when people he knew or knows back home, when they read about or hear about these witch trials, they laugh. They don't laugh because of the situation, because it it's horrible. The murder and killing of people is horrible in any capacity, right? He said that they laugh because of exactly what I had said just a few minutes ago, right? They understand that uh, all of which is ability to move energy, a chi healer, all right? A Qigong healer, right? And so I looked at him confused for a minute, and I was like, "What do you mean?" You know, and he said, you know, that's all they are is they're healers, right? They're energy healers, and you know, maybe their term for the energy that they are moving is different. Maybe their technique is a little bit different. It's all chi, it's all prana, it's all energy. All right. And with that, I'm going to wish you all and tell you all to have a really nice day. All right. Thank you for watching.